How's it going, everyone? It's me, Zerker, and today we are building a shelf riser. You'll be needing some scissors, a knife, razor blade, tape measure, some glue, tape, a pen or sharpie, pieces of cardboard in this case, and another hard surface if you're like me, do it on carpet. If not, you can use the hardwood floor. I use the shelf kind of just to make my lines and just to provide a harder surface for me to actually work on. I use a cutting board from my kitchen. I live in an apartment, kind of just made do with what I got on hand. So at this point, I'm just making sure everything is close to or at the exact same width of this Billy shelf. And I'm making a line for the actual depth of this Billy shelf. And here I'm actually looking at how deep this shelf riser is actually going to be. And I'm using this Viz signature manga to actually provide that because I ultimately decided to use this shelf, this riser for these Viz bigs or these Viz signatures. I'm sorry. So here I'm just cutting out the actual portion I'm going to use for the riser shelf. Yeah, and make sure your knives are sharpened or you have a fresh razor blade or X-ACTO blade because I had to make multiple cuts just because it wouldn't get down all the way through. At this point, I'm just kind of figuring out ultimately if I'm going to use the standard mangas for this riser or if I'm going to use the Viz bigs or the Viz signatures. And here I'm just using some scissors to actually clean up on my cuts and remove any extra bits that are hanging off on the platform for the riser. Now your cuts don't have to be absolutely perfect. I would always say have a little, make them just a tiny bit, and I mean like a real tiny bit, a little bit, a real tiny bit wider than they need to be. And what I'm doing here in my head, I was actually trying to kind of push the glue down into the between the two pieces of cardboard. It ultimately didn't really work out the way I was anticipating, so I used some tape to actually just join the two pieces together on one side, and then on the other side, it actually worked out a little bit more in my favor because the tape was actually pushing the two flaps up a little bit, which allowed glue to get down between them. So you can see here the glue, I'm putting a nice bead of glue between them, and it's actually getting down in between these two cracks. And I'm using this to kind of clean it up and push the glue further down. Just put some weight, let it dry overnight, or give it a couple hours to dry. Alright, so here I'm looking at measuring out to decide how tall I actually want the risers to sit on the shelf. I think I ultimately decided to go, yeah, with 2 inches here, and you could do probably something a little bit better than what I was doing. I was kind of freeballing the actual line here. This is something I used to do quite a bit in art class, so I felt pretty confident in making a very straight line. And I also found that cutting the tube down lengthwise is going to be a lot easier when you're going to cut these out into their individual, I guess, risers. So if you're not too confident, I don't really know the best way to go about doing this. Getting the line all the way across, you can get so you could get a clean cut. Ultimately, you could probably just cut down the length of the tube and then lay it out flat, and then draw your lines that way. That would work as well. The tubes will actually kind of go back to their original shape almost. And now here, what I actually decided to do, which saved me a lot of time, was take one of the ones I cut and place it over this paper towel roll that I have and just kind of do the lines all the way down. Unfortunately, I didn't realize while I was doing this that I was out of frame. But you'll see kind of like you'll kind of see what I'm doing through when I get low enough on certain bits, but this will save you a bunch of time as far as getting a paper towel roll cut. And I did the same practice that I did with the toilet paper roll, and I cut down the length, and from there just cut out the individual risers that I needed. Here, basically what I'm doing now is I'm taking some tape and I'm going to re-secure the actual shape that these tubes were in. So I laid the tape about halfway through the width of the tape right here, and then joined them together and then folded the tape back over. This way, because I felt like if I left them kind of cut open, I wouldn't get a good, I wouldn't feel confident in the structural integrity overall. I felt like if they weren't joined back into a complete, cylinder shape, that over time they would kind of break free from the weight of the books or whatever, and break away from the glue or something like that, that will eventually hold these to the shelf. So I just went and did this through all the tubes. You could do this, you could glue them together, I guess, if you wanted to, but I found the tape to be a little bit more efficient this way. And I used the little glue lines and everything on the rolls to actually kind of line up the rolls so that, it was flat. And so it was a flat surface for them. Now, I will say how I have it set up, right, or how I actually ultimately ended up with, was not the best decision. I should have seen that since I had 4, or I should say, once I saw that I had 8 risers, or 8 legs, or whatever you want to call them. I should have done 4 along top and then 4 along the bottom, and then with something in the center to provide some structural integrity for all the weight. So here I was running out of time for the night, so I just got 2 glued down to see how kind of it would turn out, and it ended up being pretty good turnout for me. So I just finished up for that night and then continued on the next day. So now here I didn't mark or record this part, unfortunately, but I actually took from the 2 that I had previously glued down, and I kind of measured out, I believe, 4 or 5 inches from each other and made little marks about where the tube would be. And then at this point I just put the tubes down and kind of spot glued them in place. And then after I spot glued them, I just ran a bead all the way down, or all the way along where they made the contact with the shelf riser, or the shelf, I should say. So I just went through, glued it all down. I will say I used far too much glue for this particular part because this particular elmers glue that I'm using is fast drying, and it still took a full day for it to actually fully cure. So keep that in mind. This probably could have been done all in one day if I had been a little bit more conservative with the glue, the amount of glue I was using, or if I even used like something like a super glue. But here I'm just now making sure everything's in place, looking good, and then putting some weight on top and letting it dry overnight. And right here I'm just kind of making sure everything looks good. Just seeing if the legs are secured enough. I was also looking at if the joints where the two pieces of cardboard were connected at, if they were gonna hold together, and everything held together. So from here, I had to go ahead and put it on the shelf, put it to use. And here it is with the shelf riser installed and manga placed on top of it. Now if you look towards Black Lagoon at volumes 1 through 4, you can see on the bottom there I had to make a new bracket. That one goes the full depth of the shelf and is providing structural integrity for that area, because when I was placing the manga on the shelf, that side collapsed. But other than that, everything on there is holding up just fine. I think I did a pretty good job of making sure nothing would break or bend, or there is a little bowing, I guess, kind of going on, but other than that, it's very small and not noticeable, and I think it turned out really, really well. Obviously some changes for the next one that I do make, but this is how it looks with the mangas placed on top, and you'll see shortly what it looks like with the front row filled up as well. And here I got it all set up now to basically how I would have it officially done. This isn't going to be permanent. I might be switching things around, but I used the Visig and the bit large Gdansk books in the very back, which is the regular, and then the regular sized mangas in the front. As you can tell, it does provide enough height to look over the top, so you can see what's back there. And I think what I will ultimately do is not put this on the very top shelf, and probably put it on a shelf lower. That way it's easier to see what is back there. But yeah, this is it. This is done. This is how it looks. I'm pretty happy with it so far, and I'm gonna make some changes on the next one that I do once I get more material available. But yeah, let me know what you think about it. Let me know if you plan to do something like this, and just curious to see how you think I did with this. This is my first time doing like a voiceover type of video, and I'm not sure exactly how it's going to turn out or anything like that. But yeah, here's my shelf riser for my manga collection, and yeah, it's all made with cardboard. So let me know let me know what you think about it. Until then, I am a Zerker, and I'm out of here. Peace.